Well, this is where it gets interesting. If you're speaking to me, Michal Klare, as an environmentalist, I worry about all of these issues. But when I'm channeling what I've learned from the position taken by senior military leaders, their views are different. They don't worry about everything. They worry about what affects the ability of the U.S. military to carry out its assigned functions, which is to protect the United States from its enemies and national security threats. And not all things are equal in that category. So they worry about the impact of climate change abroad, which they believe is going to lead to state collapse, widespread state collapse, including of major powers, including nuclear-armed powers, ultimately, like India and Pakistan, possibly leading to nuclear wars as temperatures rise and conditions deteriorate in much of the world. So they worry about the military implications of these effects. They also worry about how climate change is going to create multiple catastrophes simultaneously in the United States. Not just one hurricane, but multiple hurricanes at once, and with far more devastating consequences that we've seen in the past, with fires raging in California at the same time. And they're going to have to deploy their resources, their troops, their planes, their ships, to deal with these emergencies, thereby diverting forces which may be needed somewhere else for a catastrophe, a war, a crisis somewhere else. So their forces will be divided, and you never want to do that in a war. And third, they worry that climate change poses a severe threat to a lot of their bases, especially those in Florida and in the Carolinas and up into Virginia. This is where America's major naval bases are located, and many of them are at severe risk from climate change. So those are the things that they worry about, the ones that affect national security and their capacity to fulfill their operations. They worry about also the thawing of the permafrost in Alaska. We don't hear so much about that down here, but in Alaska, that's where they have a lot of bases that are oriented towards the Arctic, and Russian forces across the Arctic, and Chinese and North Korean forces, missiles that might be sent here. And a lot of their bases aimed at those threats are built on permafrost, and they are collapsing because of the thawing of the permafrost. So they look at consequences that directly affect their ability to fulfill their missions.